Welcome to Critical Café,
Join us as we chat about the latest episode,
the campaign as a whole, and Critical Role in general.
all while we partake in a delicious cup of coffee. So grab yourself a tasty beverage
Settle into your favorite cozy spot.
and get ready for a little geek philosophy. Welcome everyone to Critical Cafe Live. My name's Brian and this is Crystal.
Hello.
Hello. So if you're joining us for the first time, we're going to be talking about all things Critical Role, specifically Campaign 3 this time around, and Episode 55. So if you don't want to be spoiled, fair warning ahead, there will be spoilers. Just want to mention that right out of the gate, Crystal and I had the opportunity to catch the Creator Clash this weekend, which really exciting. Lots of great amateur matches that were going on, and our very own Marisha Ray, very own meaning the critter community's Marisha Ray was on the card and did a great job. She showed the heart of a warrior. Didn't win her fight, but she stuck throughout the whole match and did really well. And as a longtime fan of combat sports, that is saying a lot when you're able to kind of take some punishment, give some things too. She wasn't in there giving up. She was giving and getting on the boxing front. So great job, and really proud of the way she was able to just carry herself after the event too. It's a lot to go out there in front of so many people, put it on the line, and so I thought it was really cool. A lot of other good fights on there too. So if it's something that you're interested in next year, it's for charity. So recommend checking it out. They had a packed house in Tampa, right? It was Tampa, right?
Yeah, it's Tampa.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was great. Yeah, she lasted all 5 rounds. It was 5 2-minute rounds, and they were serious. You know, you think, oh, it's for charity, it's amateur boxing. Yep. You know, they'll be kind of playing around a little bit. Oh, no, everybody was very serious. Every match was taken seriously, and I think they raised a ton of money for good charities, and I agree. Like, how she handled it was awesome. You know, one of the things that she said afterwards was, you know, maybe 6 weeks or 2 months before the match, her mindset changed from she wanted to win to she wanted to go the distance. Whether she won or not, she wanted to put it all out there and say she did her best. And I definitely think she can say that. You know, I was very proud of her. Even though she didn't win, she had the heart of a warrior, and she toughed through. Her poor face was beat to hell and back, swollen up, and I mean, and she's fair anyways because she's a redhead, but I mean, she took it and she kept trying her best to dish it out. You know, the other girl had a year of experience on her, so in that situation, I think she did the best that she absolutely could. So
I think so too. It was
awesome.
her first fight ever. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, and you got to think even pros win and lose, right? So it's something that she's got the experience now. If she decides to go back next year and do it, now she knows what it's like. She'll be able to train and prepare better now that she's had that experience. So, yeah, really
and
great.
She had no fighter experience. Her experience was competitive dance. So she had no, you know, skin touching skin in an aggressive manner. you know what I mean? Like, there's some of us that have taken kickboxing and karate, and you have had an extensive amount of training in hand-to-hand combat sports. But, you know, like, she did an extracurricular that was highly athletic, but there's no aggression with someone else. So it's a total different ball game, I think, whenever you're getting hit in the face and hitting somebody else back in the face, sanctioned anyways.
As someone who has been in the ring with others, nowhere near like some of the other friends and people that I trained with coming up, they had a lot more bouts in the ring. But as someone who has been kicked and punched in full contact sports, it is not fun to be on the receiving end and to be able to push through and show that heart that you can do it. And it's a lot. It's hard to explain unless you've been in a competition like that. So I give full respect to everybody who ever steps in the ring or on the mat, whatever it may be, whatever sport it is. It's just, I recommend, if someone has the ability to do it, I recommend everybody does it at some point in their life. if you can and you're able to. Not everybody can. Not everybody's able to physically or with health reasons wise and all that kind of stuff. But it does tell you a lot about yourself training for something like that, putting yourself out there and just having a one-on-one competition that's like that. So I think she probably learned a lot about herself in those 5 rounds. So it's pretty amazing.
Right.
Anyway, all that said, let's get to the Critical Role stuff.
moving
So let's jump over to, we always start with Danny Carr's Critical Recap, as you know, if you've been watching this before. So it's a great way if you are getting caught up and you can't catch our show and you miss it. You can always at least read what's going on with her recap. She does a great job with it. So I'm going to go through the first 2 sections and then we will break for chat. And then if there's chat in the chat room, we'll bring you guys into the conversation too. But I want to make sure that we get a good chunk of information to talk about. So we start off with the group heading to the Grand Cass Citadel, where they meet with basically the king and queen. It's a diarchy of leadership there. So in this area, it's a elf dwarf king queen that is ruling this area. So after all of the heroic deeds of getting the bull out of the area, they are basically being rewarded. So they meet with them, but on the way in, they are meeting with another desk, Lord Desavan Kamash, and Fern has a little encounter with him before they go in, and actually steals one of his rings as they are about to go in. So great roll, I guess. I'm wondering how that would have gone had that not been a really good roll. But then they explained that Umadara was a spirit of the forest and a guardian, and sort of this was something they knew about, and it was sort of magically frozen there, and they brought him to Uthadurn to protect him, and the other protectors may still be in the forest, which is now the Savalier Wood. So they may awaken too. Who knows what's going on there? So that's kind of where we start out with that meeting, and then while they're there, they sort of explain that the apogee solstice has cut off their communication with the world, and that a lot of their more powerful magic is pretty much being unraveled. And so they can confirm that resurrection magic is currently inaccessible. The temples are all kind of freaked out about that. That's also really important for the group to know. And they've sent everybody that can teleport out to gather information, and they're hoping they're going to return in about a week or 2. Chetney then explains that they were in Marquette and, all the stuff that happened with them being transported over. And they request that as protectors, they be granted teleportation whenever it's available, some more information, and they want some clothing from the famed tailor that's there. And they also want to kind of get as much of the research as they can get done from the Vellum Steeple. So let me pause there. Crystal, you can think through your thoughts on this while I head over to the chat, and then I'll see if we've got anything popping up. All right, great. Welcome to the chat, everybody. Those of you that are in there, I didn't say that, but welcome everybody. Open World Attic, thank you very much for showing up. Anybody else that's in there, we will bring in comments as we can. But sorry, Crystal, I cut you off. Go ahead and give me your thoughts on what's going on.
So, of course, right away, the group's talking about going and seeing the king and the queen. And of course, they're like, Fern, please, please, please refrain from trying to steal something very obviously in front of the king and the queen. And I really feel like her, communication back was okay, well, I'll steal from the first person that I meet, which ended up being this dwarf dude that comes out and seemingly is somebody who's on like the council or something. He's somebody who's really important, but she ends up getting a pretty sweet, jewel encrusted ring off of his beard. And then they happily go upon their way. The king and the queen are extremely happy that they were able to move the protector out, or the guardian out, without harming him. And they explain, that they brought him here to protect him, and that the enchantment or whatever spell that was keeping him frozen, which is probably petrified, failed, and that's how he came back to life. So it was pretty much just, we kind of already knew that had happened, but they were just confirming that had happened. And it was nice to know that they brought him to protect him, not as an ornamentation. They didn't just bring him in and say, oh, look, we found this massive bull out in the forest somewhere, and we're gonna put him in the center of the square and make him a spectacle. No, they had him, ensconced into like one of the museum type areas, and they were trying to protect him. So not thinking that he would probably ever come back, but he did. And they were extremely glad, named the group Protectors of the City. Everything but the key, like the ribbon cutting with the key to the city was given to them. So right away, the first thing that the group asked for. Yeah.
When they open the Uthadurn Walmart, they'll be there to cut the ribbon at the Uthadurn Walmart or something.
The ribbon cutting. But right away, oh gosh, what's Abria's character's name? Deanna perked up and was like, oh, can we see the royal, seamstress or the royal clothier or whatever? So they asked for all the gift cards and like blank checks to get new outfits.
I was so scared when they said all that stuff, because I was just like, oh man, I know how much Crystal hates shopping episodes. So some people love them. It's just her least favorite thing, that like when there's a shopping spree. And so this was like setting up for that. Luckily, it didn't turn out to be huge shopping spree this time. It was sort of not that way.
Right.
But
it
did
have an
element of that. But
yeah.
It was, yeah.
Well, yeah, there was an element of it, but it was really like this isn't like they just went into a big store and asked for every single thing that was on the shelf. Yeah. They actually went in with a thought in mind of what type of outfits they wanted, and they were being handmade, tailored there. So it was much easier because most of the group had an idea of what they wanted made and was able to describe it, and it was done, and it was great. It's those, half session long trips where they don't know what they're doing, and they don't know where they're going, and they don't know what they're buying, and it's like, oh, okay, now let's go kill something, guys. So, but no, it was fun. And I really like how Matt portrayed the lady that was the designer. Yeah, she was very snooty.
We'll get there. Yeah. So,
but so, anyways.
So what are your thoughts? Like, I guess the big reveal. Let me bring this in too, because it's right what I was going to ask. So, question pops in. I was shocked to hear that. This, and everybody, just so you know, if I'm bringing in questions after we've talked about it, it's just there's a slight delay in the chat. So I'm flagging them as I see them. So don't worry, I'll grab your question as soon as I can. But so this is where like the kind of the reveal of no resurrection magic, no revivify, none of those things that everybody counts on. So this is a great point. Like, what are your thoughts when that got brought up, Crystal? Like the whole they're on their own basically.
I was terrified because I'm like, okay, well that makes things a little bit more serious. It's already serious going out and adventuring like they do, because not like that type of magic isn't readily available anyways, but it's available. It might take a while to get it. It might take a minute to figure it out. It might hurt with the cost of the diamonds or the cost of whatever, or the fact that you have to keep the spell slot open, but there's something available. It's like if it happens, but taking it away and saying, we're unable to access, it's offline right now. We can't, that it's terrifying. If somebody dies in the group or in the other group that we're not keeping an eye on, Ren over there bleeding out with her arm broken off somewhere, I mean.
No, 100%. And like when he said that, like when that kind of came out, I thought immediately to your point that you made episodes ago that we were talking about, like where you were like, hey, when Matt said that this was going to be, no holds barred, a lot more dangerous, and we haven't seen that yet. And like, I remember us talking about that on the show. Yeah. But I was like, well, maybe he knew that once this happened, they were going to lose access to that. And maybe this is what he meant where the gloves are off. Like, you don't have that cushion. So I'm wondering if this
Right.
was a planned thing where they just don't have that. You know, like maybe that's just
Yeah.
something they're going to not have for a while. So that leaves it really lethal, like as far as a campaign
Right.
goes. You take away that level of magic and it's kind of like playing old school D&D, like, you know, AD&D, the original stuff, without, you know, having to, you just basically rolled up a new character when you died. Like, you didn't get a chance to resurrect anybody.
Right.
So
And
it's really interesting.
I don't know if I don't know if in the section that we're at, it gets to this, or they maybe they don't mention it, but even at one point, either the king or the queen mentioned that the solstice is stuck. You know, like it should have already come and gone, and it hasn't. It's remained. It's still messing things up. They have no clue what's going on. And so as the group kind of explains to them what happened to them in Marquette and then being vamped here, and I think, you know, the king recognized Ludinus's name, and that's, I think we're, you know, he gave us some more information on him, which is probably in the next section. But, you know, it's like, okay, all right, you could start seeing their wheels turning. Like they're in an underground city on the other side of the world. I mean, you know, as to like what's happening with the solstice and the red moon. So with Ruidus. So I think this is the first bit of information they've got, because all of their people have been sent out to information gather and haven't come back yet. So there's no teleportation, there's no reviving magic, there's no, you know, so things are messed up right now.
Yep. And like, and great point here. Open world access, we'll get to this later, but yeah, it feels like the gods are scared, which is 100%. We're getting little glimpses of that, right? So, great point. Now it's coming. I think this is in response to the whole, like, you know, the gloves are off type of thing. So so let's head back over and keep moving along. Hey Zach, good to see you in the chat as well. There we go. Okay, sorry, it takes a second. All right, so news and requests. So now the mage and the Maleismere. So the king basically says, hey, Ludinus was one of the most powerful mages of, and I hope I'm saying this right, Maleismere.
Maleismere.
He avoided he avoided all the politics and kind of just stayed in the tower. And he studied the past, and when the city fell, he went to Winnedeer, and so he cared like about basically what he could get for himself for the most part, not really about everybody else. And so he studied the gods, he tried to collect relics, he had a sort of an animosity that nobody really trusted, so it was sort of well known by those that knew him that he hated the gods, didn't get along with anybody at the temples. A lot of the priests demanded that his resources be limited, and he became a recluse, right? So after the fall of Maleismere itself, it was there's sort of a font of magic that they were attempting to understand there, and the researchers were kind of discovering all of this stuff beneath the city, like in the caverns below. And so the king believes that the cataclysm was unleashed there, and he attempted to discover the essence of magic. So it makes me think of things like Whitestone, and like, you know, the power underneath Whitestone with the Residuum. Is there a connection there? Yes. Or some other type of things? So I think it's really interesting. So Ruidus was flaring at the night of the storm of toxic shadow engulfed the city, and it warped the people and the forest. So there's a tie to Ruidus during all the stuff that happened there. Pretty crazy. Should we stop with this first or keep going to the next section? Crystal, what do you...
Yeah, let's talk about this, because it's a lot to unpack, I think.
I think so too.
So what is interesting, and they said it in the stream, is that at least we know when he was in Maleismere, he was a young elf. So we have a little bit of timeline knowledge on age,
Sure.
because lewdness has seemingly been around for a long time. But at this point, it's kind of like, has he gone back in time, forward in time? Has he messed with all the dudamancy? Has he, like, how has he achieved what he's achieved? And then it's also really interesting that he was almost seen as kind of like a mad scientist mage, like he had such wild ideas, and it just off put people to the point where he became a recluse. So at what point did he turn from being a recluse into turning into kind of like a cult leader, like, let me pull all these strings and
Yeah.
make people bend to my will, and like grow this huge amount of people and following so that we can just kill the gods. And there's a lot of information, there's a lot of history that needs to be filled in on, like, how did Ludinus get from like point A to point B? How did he go from being a
Yeah.
complete shut in to being like now this figurehead of this
Yeah.
huge group?
I
So
agree. It's let me pull in. First of all, hey Laura, going wilder and saying hello to everybody in the chat as well. This is kind of goes along with just what you were saying there. Open World Addict. I feel like nothing we learned about Ludinus was surprising. Like it was stuff that we already knew about, or at least theorized on. So throughout the whole thing, he was saying, "Yep, that makes sense," which totally get. I think what's interesting to your point, Crystal, is that it's not so much that the new information was so surprising and out of character for what we thought. It's just filling in the pieces. Like, you very rarely do you have a character that just starts out being all one thing, or all, working for the forces of evil,
right.
or whatever. Like there's a turning point and something caused that, right? Like it's sort of like, if you see Darth Vader and you know him as Darth Vader and that's all you don't know what caused him to become Darth Vader, right? Like, so the more you kind of go back, you're like, okay, those pieces make sense, or whatever it is. You can fill in the gaps with any character or villain or whatever it is. So I think that's what's interesting. Like you said, trying to piece together, what age was he then? Like, is there, okay, can we call him young then and he grew up from there? Or is there still some issues with, is it possible that he was, reborn again into another body? Like, some of the things that we've theorized already. So, it's interesting to kind of find out some of the details there. I also think it's fun to like, it fills in the gaps, but I also think it's, as Open World Addict says, absolutely filling in the gaps.
Villain
But
origin story.
Yeah, it is. So, a question here, and maybe you know this, Crystal. I don't know. Zach pulls up a really good point. Is shouldn't Chet and Deanna know a little bit more about Ludinus then?
I mean, they're gnomes and he's an elf, so maybe not, because that was the elf king that had the information, right?
So it wasn't really in Uthadurn that this happened. This was happening
Right.
Right. So
Malleus
maybe
Mir.
that's why, like, so it could have happened. It could have been common knowledge for certain groups of people, but not everybody. But it's a good question, Zach. Like,
that was
I don't
my
know, like,
kind of
assumption.
assumption.
I think it's a fair assumption. Like, it might have not been in the same circle. So let me see. We've got Laura says, I tuned in a little late and I'm forgetting. Do we know how long ago Malesmer fell? Ludinus mentioned that he's been around 1,000 years. How long has it been sort of conceiving of this plan? I don't know when it was that it fell, but it's long enough that it got a new name, right? Like that it fell, and then other areas of names have changed. So it's been a while. So
now it's a Savalier wood and it's twisted, and the denizens twisted. Things are things, and the Savalier wood has been that way for a long time because that was Caduceus family, taking care of the Savalier wood, and they'd been doing it for generations, right? So it's been a while. And my question too is what constitutes a young elf? Is that like before 500? I mean, like young.
It depends. I don't know. Like, so it's really hard because like it differs campaign world to campaign world. So I don't know what it's like in Exandria or Tal'Dorei, I should say. Like, I don't know what Matt thinks of that. So it's pretty interesting to kind of think, what is the lifespan in terms of like this is exceedingly long. Like it's sort of the joke that Chetney has, right? Like I'm old, like, but old for him
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
300 plus years, right? Like so, it's all relative to I guess the species or the race or whatever. So it's a great point. All right, let's jump a little bit further. So, connecting the dots. Maybe this is where we'll get some stuff. So, Leismere is about a week's travel from where Uthadurn is. So, still close to there, but not too. Maybe that's a good key to whether or not they've heard about it before. They basically had somebody researching and delving into the magic and the writings. The Grand Conservator was doing that. The Vellum Steeple has sent some people delving, but it's still sort of dangerous to go do all that and to go seek out that information and research. So the group reveals that Ludinus is basically behind the whole Apogee Solstice stuff, and they fill the king and queen in on what's going on, and the fact that he's basically trying to bring down all the gods. So filling in the dots a little, or connecting the dots, filling in the gaps a little bit for everybody. Deanna asks if Leismere fell during an Apogee Solstice, and the king believes that happened. So, plus Ruidus was flaring. It just seems like Ludinus was behind the whole fall of the city. And a noble confirms that the solstice, which should have ended yesterday at that point in the game, is continuous. This is what you were saying, Crystal. Like, it's supposed to have ended, but it's still there. Imogen basically, I think, lets them know that, well, it's because it's being locked in place. Like, Ruidus is locked in place over this machine, this whole rig that Ludinus put together when he activated everything. So, it's kind of been locked there. So they give advice about traveling to Leismere and warn of the threats about the Sabalier Wood and Shady Creek Run, and they get a map to go to the Graying Wildlands and a set of mithril armor from the family of a deceased guard. So they believe that they're going to be heading that way. They have Frida reveals at this point to Deanna that they have this crush on FCG. So they have this other side thing that's kind of happening, and Deanna kind of encourages that, hey, go follow your heart kind of thing. And he does the same with her, but she's like, now Chetney's moved on. So that's kind of where we are. Should we keep going, or do we want to stop and talk about what we got here so far?
Let's talk about it just real quick.
Okay. Yeah. Please. Let's do it.
Well, I looked it up really quick. So Leismere fell in 585 PD. And we are now, like, Bell's Hells was formed in 843 PD. So it's been not quite 300 years, right?
Okay. So...
But it was, it was it's an ancient elven city.
Yeah, to Zach's point, though, it seems like that's close enough, a week's travel away, that shouldn't they have heard something? Like, shouldn't Chetney have known something about that? It might have just been an oversight, like maybe...
Well, he did. They asked him, somebody in the group asked him if he knew about it, and he said yes. But that it had never been pertinent to him.
He didn't connect the dots of what was going on yet.
Yeah.
Okay, because I think that was
what
the
question was. So it was kind of like a side conversation.
Yeah. I see. Got it.
Yeah. And I think it's super adorable that Frida's got a crush on FCG. It's so cute. Like, I don't know how it'll work.
I don't understand.
Oh, hello. Nope, Siri. Siri saying, I don't understand.
Siri doesn't have to understand.
My watch. But, I kind of didn't see the crush coming. Aormaton to Aormaton, but I think it's cute and it's going to make for a really good story. So
I think so too. It's also makes sense for the game they're playing and like the connection that they finally were able to build with someone like them, so it makes sense.
Well, they feel like they're family,
really well done. Yeah.
So
They
Yes.
very literally were sharing dreams together. So, you know,
Oh, I know. I
yeah,
wonder if that's their intimacy that they're able to have.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
It's
is
we'll
dream
see.
sharing.
Yep. So, yeah, let's keep going.
That's it.
All right. So, I've connected the dots. Encyclopedia Deleth. The group splits up. Deanna and Imogen and Chetney and Fern go to the Vellum Steeple. They meet with a scribe warden there who gives them a dossier, basically, on lewdness and tells them, you know, or introduces them rather to the chief auditor, Kinash, and he has headed the expeditions to go to the Savalier Wood. He warns them of the woods and says, "Hey, there's a lot of craziness there, so be careful." The dossier is kind of thin. There's pretty much only a little bit that's been recorded about him because he's, been a recluse during that time. Most of the information involves the Cerberus Assembly, which makes sense, and the Eve of Crimson Midnight, an event where he helped end a deadly skirmish between the mages of the Dwendalian Empire and the Julius Dominion. So his heroics, basically, during all of that stuff, basically gave him the ability to create the Cerberus Assembly, where he became the Archmage of Domestic Protection. So basically, Palpatine, did all the things behind the scenes to become the Emperor. In a way, right? So, lewdness was also key in getting the Julius Dominion into the Empire, and lewdness was praised for his work recently by helping end the War of Ash and Light between the Empire and the Kryn Dynasty. Which, come on, everybody, we know how that happened. And
Yeah,
then
which
in
he did not
Blaismere,
do.
yeah. He was a lower council member in Malaysmere, and he had tension with the temples. Go figure. And then he immigrated from an Elvish community to Malaysmere. So even he wasn't even from there originally. Like, he came there from another Elven community. So yeah, lots of little bits of information. Keep going or pause and talk.
Let's keep going.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay.
Actually,
So
let's pause because this goes straight to, it like
yes.
scene ends and it goes over to the other thing. So let's talk about this really quick before we get into going to Jacoby's. So as we know, Ludinus has engineered a lot of the things that he's gotten accolades for, I think. So it isn't odd to think that maybe he had a hand in engineering his whole come about of power with the Cerberus Assembly too. He has an off-putting personality. He's not a friendly guy. And then he, seemingly comes out of nowhere and saves the day. And so they put him in charge. He creates the assembly and they put him in charge as the domestic protector or whatever. But I also feel like he probably moved to Malaysmere because of the power. He wanted to study it. He wanted to, be a mad scientist. Mage, I guess, is, my new term for him. But I think he moved there because it was a font of power, probably where an old god had died, or because that's where all the residuum and some of the other powders come from, is like ley lines that have been left behind of minerals from gods that have fallen in the past, or celestial beings, dotting across the face of the world and leaving pockets of power. So I think he went there to figure out how to become more powerful, or to figure out how to harness the power. Then it blew up on, during a red moon, suspicious, and then turned into some, he's running all these experiments, and then all of a sudden there's a shadowy night and it gets all twisted. So I mean, I probably am not right in painting him as the big bad villain this whole time, but I still feel like he probably had a hand in that too.
Yeah. Well,
But,
it's Open World
I don't
Alex
know.
says I've heard theories that he was the one that caused the disaster. So I think
Yeah,
you're both onto something. I think he's definitely kind of pulling the strings, so to speak, behind a lot of these things, taking credit where maybe it's not for him, or at least where things, like even with this solstice, right? He was connected with other things that were just misdirections. Like he would have something going
right.
on just to draw attention there, so that nobody was focused on the other stuff. So I just feel like he
All
is the
of the
Phantom
little
Menace, right? Like he is
misdirections, all of
Palpatine
the
behind the
like
scenes.
all
Yeah.
of well, it's like all of the stuff that he had in place for this apogee solstice shows you either he's gone back and forth like you've said with possibility with the dudamancy. Like
Hmm.
what's the possibility of this avenue working versus this avenue, and he's adjusted, or it's been all these years of trying little things along the way and only achieving small results, not
Yep.
god ending results. So the level of I guess the level of playing field that is happening right now, that shows years and years and years of studying and years of putting things into play. He's got all these misdirects. He's got all of these fights happening and other planes even, like all this stuff going on. It didn't just pop up out of nowhere yesterday. He's been plotting and planning for hundreds of years. And of course, things have happened around him in that time because he's experimenting. So
Yeah.
he's
So
not a
let me.
good dude.
Do you remember? Does I don't know, anybody in the chat remember how far back Ruidus Born goes? Like the number, like how many people have been Ruidus Born? How far back does that go? Like, because one of the things, because if it's not like since the beginning of whenever, like it makes you wonder if he had some kind of play in seeding the world with Ruidus Born, meaning like what some of the things he might have done were to have these people born during these times where he knew that this was like in the long game he would be able to somehow control them, as if he was sort of
Yeah.
planting the seeds for them to go. And I wonder if because we're kind of giving credit to, or at least I was giving credit to Predathos for doing a lot of this stuff, and maybe that's true, maybe it is, but I wonder if it was not necessarily Predathos' intention, but rather Ruidus or Ludinus's intention to tap into that and then spread the seed of this to power the breaking of the gate, so to speak. But I don't know.
Right.
There's
Well,
also, I guess, there's theories that he was originally from Aor, so I wouldn't surprise me either, depending on
well,
like how long
the
he's been living.
yeah, Ruidus showed up after the calamity at some point. But it wouldn't seem odd for, in my mind, for like it wouldn't even shock me if Ludinus had had women having babies off in a room somewhere, planned to be giving birth during, a Ruidus flare or whatever, like it just, with all the experiments that they were doing, trying to stretch powers, trying to, figure things out, and then he's gathering as many as he can. It really isn't a far stretch that he's somehow engineered that aspect of things too, because they're what he needs to release Predathos. So
Yeah.
therefore, he's going to do his best to try to gather as many of those as he can. And for a while, I think that the Grim Verity was doing a little bit of his job because they were documenting people who had powers. And so he could just go steal that information and go find those people if he didn't already have them, So
They're
it's,
his crazy Umbrella Academy Rudis kids, right? Like,
yeah,
except
yeah.
he's the ones creating them, right? I don't know. Maybe it would. I just who knows how this will play out and what role he's had in this, depending on how
And
old
who
he is,
knows
7
if
years trying to
Predathos
do.
is whispering to him, like,
Yeah, like
who knows?
Asmodeus in Calamity. Yeah, I don't know. I still feel like there's going to be some reveal that ties back to um,
Okay.
Xandria Unlimited Calamity. But I don't know. We'll see. All right. Well, let's keep diving in. So we connected the dots. We've got
We
the
get to
second.
meet
Now we've got
Jacoby.
the yeah. So while FCG and Frida go to Jacoby's, they basically are taking the walk and they're getting to know each other even better, and they sort of they got Frida got to discover more about themselves by meeting FCG, is what they're basically saying, and that you know it's sort of showing how he's having feelings. He's afraid of something happening to Deanna or FCG. Frida loves Deanna, but she's not their person. FCG had a person once. They were referring to Dancer, but they tried to kill her. Asked if they
But he
would
did kill
be.
Pussy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny. He's like, so it's basically if FCG and Frida became their special person, would they try to kill them? He's like, no, I would not. So then Frida kisses FCG on the cheek, but they turn quickly and they get the full-on kiss, which is great. So that's sort of on the way and before they enter Jacoby. Then they go in, they meet Jacoby, or FCG does, because Frida already knows Jacoby. And he basically sets up FCG in the mithril armor and gives him some upgrades. And, asks about, hey, can I get those legs that I've been kind of joking about for a while? And Jacoby says he's going to work on them while they're gone. But he also reveals he does the whole faceplate open thing. And, of course, we see FCG, faithful caregiver. Big reveal there. Jacoby gives Frida some cables so that they can experiment with using the power of their arcane core to power up some other enchantments and things like that. So pretty interesting. We got to chat about this. I know the chat's been going. Let's see. So Rudis was around from the time of the founding. Got it. Good point. And there was Rudis board fighting during the calamity. Okay, thanks. So it was
so it predates the calamity.
Pre-calamity. Okay, good to know. Good. Oh, Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Sam.
You said it, Zach. Yes, Sam. So thoughts on this whole thing?
Oh, I shed a little tear whenever the faceplate came open. And he's FCG's the faithful caregiver, because I think he's so worried this whole time that he's just an assassin out to kill people, and maybe that was some of the programming that he got, but his prime directive really is to care for people. So and I think that'll at least maybe put his mind to ease a little bit. And then they kiss and they're intimate, and then he takes them to see Jacoby, and he's just a character and he's fun, and they talk about just the different things that they could kind of do. He gets that mithril armor kind of affixed to himself, so now he's more kind of gold, like silvery and gold versus just yellow that he was, but he wanted to keep some of the blue, so he incorporated some of the blue still. But other than that, I can't wait to see some of the fan art on how people kind of interpret what the mithril armor looks like now over what he used to look like. I think that's going to be cute. And then Frida's even taking it a step further, and he's like, can our arcane core power bigger things if we need it to? So both of them have altruistic things in mind. I think both of them would be willing to sacrifice themselves for others, at their core, who they are. They're just they're great characters. So that's just my little gushy moment on those two. I think they're cute.
I agree. I like both of those characters, and I also think it gives a chance to kind of explore just different themes within the campaign too, right? Like I think it's really interesting to me, like some of the inventive ways that they're thinking about, like, okay, can we power something else with our with the power with the power of friendship, with our heart? Can we power something else, right? Like,
Yes.
uh,
Care Bear
so
stare.
yeah. But it's interesting stuff. Like this is where, like, it makes me start to wonder though, from a DM perspective, DM hat on. Uh, do you think that it was? And I think somebody even like asked. I think during the actual play itself, like during the show, but I don't remember what the answer is. If somebody else knows in the chat, let me know. But do you think it was planned out ahead of time? Meaning, faithful caregiver was there from the beginning, and he knew that, or Sam knew that, or was that a reveal for Sam too? That was something Matt gave Sam, and Sam only had FCG, fresh cut grass. He only had that. Like I wonder how much they'd worked out about that ahead of time. Like if that was a big reveal for Sam, as it was for us.
My take on it is I feel like Christian had that for his character, his Aormaton. And like, because he can remove his faceplate and see it. And that was, he
Mhm.
described that in the very beginning. And I think that there wasn't a beforehand thing with Matt and Sam about FCG. I think that that probably got Matt or even Sam thinking, would FCG have something like that too? So I was looking at Sam's face when that happened, and he didn't seem completely shocked, but it looked like he was emotional. And then, the rest of the group was just like almost crying about it. But so I don't know if I believe that it was completely out of the blue or if they had
Yeah.
had a conversation about it ahead of time, but I don't think that it was planned from the beginning, if that makes
Do
sense.
if you were, as a player, if you're playing a character, if you were playing FCG, would you want to have the conversation before? Meaning, would you
Not
want?
necessarily.
I can see both sides. Like, I could see why someone would say, "Hey, don't make that big of a decision about my character's background without talking to me, DM." Other people might say, no, I want you to have, this is why session 0 is so good, like when you're actually
Yeah.
playing this out. And I know we're reviewing Role as a show, but it's also a D&D game,
Right.
right? So I want
Yeah.
to, like, I
Right.
just want to, I'm always thinking about, like, how did that happen? Because it's literally them playing D&D. So what do you do as a DM and a player?
Yeah.
And then they had the other added level of, like, people are watching us play, like, so
Yeah.
I always try to see how much of that is, them thinking stuff through, because at the table, I got to admit, like, I would be hesitant to do that, like, as a DM, unless I knew that I had buy-in, that the players trusted me enough to go that way with the character. Like, I've
Right.
done a little bit like that with even in the games we played, like where I brought in someone that
Right.
was a family member and made a big surprise for one of the characters, right? But, like, that was because they didn't have any other family, they didn't know about it anyway, so it was easier to make that surprise. But I don't know, it just got me thinking about, like, how much, maybe this is a whole geek philosophy topic I need to do, but, like, how much
Well, yeah,
input
I
should you have?
think it depends on what type of relationship you have with your DM as a player too. Like, I would trust you, short of killing my character or making them some arch villain without me, like killing
Yeah.
babies or something without me knowing, I
Yeah.
would feel okay.
Yeah.
And I feel like they have that type of relationship. They've been together for so long as a group that there's probably not a lot of chance to shock them as much, or to,
Mm.
I feel like those little nuggets that Matt can drop in that can still keep them on their toes is what keeps it exciting And
Yeah.
I think they probably have exhausted a lot of things. So you've got to, to an extent, you've got to be like, okay, all right, well, what works for the story? What works for the character? And I trust you with it.
Yeah.
I can see long-term playing like they have. You let go of a lot of the control. Like long term, you're like, you know what? I trust this guy. He knows the story. He knows where he's going. He'll know like he knows the whole group, so he knows how everybody's going to react to it. Really,
Yeah.
everybody's going to
That's
be
true.
crying or what. So I really think that that group, if we're taking them individually, I definitely think that it could totally be off the cuff and they would all be fine. I think that there are some people who are control freaks and would not want that to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm not a control freak, but I think the level of trust that's there for you as my DM, I think that something like that would be fun. It wouldn't be like, wait, hold on a minute, why'd you make that choice for me? Like,
Yeah.
oh,
No,
it
that
wouldn't
makes
be. I
sense.
don't think it would be like that. Yeah.
That's fair. I think that makes sense. And
So,
you're right. They have such a really good connection. They've been doing this together for so long that they really trust each other at the table, which is always, the most important thing. All right, let's keep
or
going.
even if he just said real quick, yeah, even if he just
Yeah.
said real quick, hey, something's coming up. There's a backstory that I'm going to plop in. Just be prepared, so that it's not completely off the wall.
Shocking.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. All right. So, the storm and the dawn. So, Chetney talks to Imogen while they're walking and tries to check in to see how she's feeling about her mother's role in the whole apogee solstice. Imogen thinks it's strange that Liliana fought for the storm. Imogen doesn't know if her mother is even there anymore. Chetney kind of wants to figure out, like, hey, are they going to fight Liliana next time? If their friends are gone because of her, Imogen says she wants to take her down. They go to the Dawnfather Temple, or Deanna does. She speaks to the keeper and asks why he's curtailing prayer and why he's closing the temple. The temples are basically like circling the wagons, trying to figure out what's going on, and the high priest's ability to communicate with the gods has been severed. So they're still there, but they're turned away. To the open world Addict's point earlier, they may be scared. But they're sort of get confused by most of this stuff. Deanna says the gods are afraid of something that is coming for them, because I think they kind of sense what's going on with Prodathos. He agrees to keep the temples open because she convinces him, hey, we still have to be the light for the people. She gives him 500 gold and then tells him if he feels alone, doesn't have to be, even if the Dawnfather isn't there, the people are, which is great. She leaves and encourages the people to return to the temple for prayer and for community, which is a really nice way of kind of like framing what's going on.
Right.
Great. Stop and talk about this or keep going?
We can keep going.
Okay, just want to make sure I'm not skipping anything we want. We can talk about it as a group if we need to come back to it. So, retail therapy. So this is the shopping, right? So I won't go into too much detail here, but they are requesting very detailed, this is what they want. One of the things I thought was really interesting is that Chetney basically describes a stretchy tracksuit and is basically a hoodie that he's trying to get. So FCG and Frida officially announced themselves as an item, and FCG requests a long blue duster to kind of complement Frida's duster that he wears, or they wear, and they want FCG sewn into the lining, which I thought was really cute. Deanna wants to show off her curves, so she's got the whole bodysuit beneath the plate. Fern is like, I want everything silk. I want everything like to be perfectly extravagant and all that kind of stuff, which is really funny. Chetney gets the knitted headbands and wristbands from Deanna. He is full 80s tracksuit. And they also get matching corsets, and then they even get another one for Laudna when they get reunited. And then after a few hours, the outfits are presented, and they go back to Deanna's home, and she explains that she and Frida had gone to Isocross to look for Aor because of Frida's dreams. And unfortunately, Aor was crawling with monsters and Jorhassian soldiers, and they had to leave. So Deanna and Frida will definitely be joining the trip to Melasmere. So let's get caught up. So what are your thoughts?
So, oh gosh. Okay. So, the whole shopping thing. The thing before that, though, who was it that was talking? It was Imogen and talk about taking down her mom.
Yep.
So I really thought that this is some character growth for Imogen. Like now she's like, okay, all right, no, our friends are separated. At first I wanted to save my mom. Now she's switched gears and is like, my mom is with lewdness. She fought for the storm. She wants this to happen, and she doesn't want that anymore, because she had that whole back and forth, did she really want to live a life that didn't have magic and not, or be with her mom, and so I think that she's finally firmly settled her mind into thinking, okay, no, my mother is not doing right, and if we have to fight her, we'll fight her, which is huge. And really, I think that's the biggest decision for her lately, in the whole kind of story that Imogen with, she hasn't seen her mom since she was little, and then she thought she was dead, and then there's all this, I don't know, there's just a lot of emotional stuff with her. So I was glad that she got checked in with, really. And then of course we move on to like the silly shopping. Chetney is outfitted in the stretchy purple tracksuit with wristbands and head. He's like the old dude in the tracksuit,
Right,
Yeah. It was
Yep.
so stupid but funny. And then, Fern goes all out. She wants all the different fabrics, all the different colors, all the, whatevers. And then all the girls get matching corsets, and I was already yelling prior to anybody saying anything. I was like, don't forget Laudna. Like, when
Yeah,
you
I
get
remember
back,
that. Yeah.
you don't know where she's at and you don't know what's going on, but don't forget Laudna. Like, she's the other, musketeer in this group. So I was glad that a couple people raised awareness for that. And, it's a good group of people. They think about other people, just as players, they think about the other players. And then the whole Deanna knitting them things was cute. The headbands or wristbands. Everybody wanted something knitted. They got like throws and hoodies and, all kinds of stuff. So, and then she got all of the yarn from the clothier, all the yarn. So, and then they went back to her house, which, it was a cute little outing. And I think Matt did it okay, because it was fairly short. He had them describe what they wanted. They banged it out, took it home. They were good to go. So, and them talking about, all of a sudden they started talking about how they tried to go to Aor. They were in Isocross, tried to go to Aor because that's the dreams that Frida keeps having. And I think the group was really shocked about that. And they continued to try to ask questions about that, but they didn't really have any answers, because they went and turned around and came back, because they said it was too dangerous for them too. So interesting that they tried to go to Aor, but they're all on board to go with the group to Melasmere. So,
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, it's almost, I feel like, man, they could do a EXU, like, or Exandria or Unlimited with that group, right? Like, where they show, like, here's what happened when they tried to go to Aor, like, or whatever. So I love that they've already set the precedence of doing the EXU stuff, because now they've got like so many options for showing what happens on all these little
Frida and FCG, like that'd be a whole tale right there, like going to Aor, figuring out their background, finding D. That would be really cool.
Would be really cool. All right, so let's keep it moving. So we retail therapy. Okay, reaching out. So Fern heads to find the Wild Mother Temple outside the city, and she talks to the statue of the Wild Mother, and she asks her to reach out to Orem and kind of let Orem know that they're okay. And she only hears the wind and heads back to Deanna. She wakes up Chetney and tells him, hey, you need to pursue Deanna, otherwise she will. And he feels like he's already made his interests clear and says, hey, go ahead. And all is fair in love and war. So interesting little tidbit there. Fern joins Deanna and Imogen, and they discuss the gods and how much Imogen hates not knowing what happened and what's going on in the world. They spy on FCG and Frida, who are discussing how much they like each other. Frida sketches FCG, and they power off together holding hands, which was cute. And then in the morning, they head to the Temple of the Matron of Ravens, which is closed, and a priest tells Chetney that the matron remains, but her thoughts are distant, and they trust in her plan, whatever it may be. So they then go to pick up 6 flocky goats: Jerry, Muskie, Fabio, Belle, Patchwork, and Donny Boy. And they begin their journey to the Savalier Wood. And that's where things end for the day. So, yeah, so that's kind of how everything closes out with the goats. So, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think honestly, and I'm going to say this and I probably will get some flack for it, but Fern is probably my favorite character Ashley's ever played. She just seems carefree, like she could just have fun with her, And as it is, she goes to the temple and she's trying to go to the Wild Mother to ask her to contact Orem in some kind of way to let him know that they're okay. But she addresses her as, hey, bitch. So it's like, is this the best time to antagonize a god? They're like scared for their lives or whatever they have, like their deity. And then you got this girl just, hey, bitch. I need you to contact Orem for me, like peon. Or, I've had too much wine tonight. So treating her like she's a girlfriend or something, So yeah, I the whole time I was like, oh my God, Ashley. Okay, yeah, that's not really gonna work, but great. Yeah. And then the whole scene between Frida and FCG, I was like, paint me like your French girls, Jack, like from the Titanic, because he was like, are you going to draw me? I was just like, oh my gosh. So I really feel like it ended on a funny note last night for the most part. Yeah. Or not last night, but, at the end of the show last week. And it was cute because I feel like we've got some heavy stuff coming. They're going to travel to Malaya-Smear. Yep. I guess to figure out whatever they can. What are they looking for? What do you think they're looking for?
It's interesting. I'm not sure. I think they're just looking for answers, right? Like, I think they're trying to find out as much as they can about all of the things that are going on. And so it seems like it's sort of heading them down this trail of everything. Well, they're finding out that they're walking down a trail where lewdness has already been. So if nothing else, even if they don't have a direct goal of this is what they're trying to do, they may find out more about what happened with lewdness, what happened with Malaya-Smear, all the things that were going on there. The activation or awakening of spirits, all of the things that they're like that are related to this may come to light. But I do feel as if it's in this section where they have the least direct path that is laid out for them, right? They're trying to figure things out as they go.
I feel like they threw that curveball at Matt because I remember him being like, oh, you guys want to go to Malaya-Smear? Okay. Yep. Because I think what started it was the king and the queen were talking about how all of their old texts and their library, all that stuff kind of got lost in that cataclysm. and they've sent people back over to try to get things, but it's been difficult. And so maybe they're going to try to dig up texts and dig up like an old library, or I guess fact gather to see if they can figure out anything to
Yeah. I also think they
ancient
don't know.
texts on Ruidus.
Well, until they can get back to where they were, I think that this is the best. If they can find a way to travel, or they can find a do. But so, I don't know. I think they're in. They're wandering without a direct plan right now.
Yeah.
They've got other people playing. I also, not to break the, immersion into the game, but it also makes you wonder, like, is there a logistics thing where they know they're going to have some episodes with the new players, and they want to do some things that everybody's going to enjoy? Because sometimes just playing D&D, it's that way, like where you're scheduling, you're like, I've got these people that can't be here this time, let's figure out a way to keep the game going and keep the story moving with the players that we have, and then we'll combine our playing group. That just happens with regular D&D. It's got to be even like something that's considered during these games, where you're like you're showing everything live to the world. So I don't know. I don't know if it's a completely in-game decision, or if there's a little bit of out-of-game stuff that's creeping in. So
Yeah.
it doesn't bother me.
Well, I know we had,
just,
the whole time Marisha's fight was coming up too. So I feel like that probably played a little bit into the decision to, stretch out some of the in-between stuff so that she could focus on that, but not lose the meat of the game, really, because I think we're going to be swinging back around once everybody's ready to go again.
Yeah. At least it had a big
but I'm
decision
hoping
on which group to have the spotlight first.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and I am hoping that they meet the guardian bull guy again, because he's essentially going where they're going now.
Yeah.
And they make better friends, and he becomes like an ally to them, like he's got it. Once, if magic is restored, he's got to have some badass stuff he could do, right? I mean, if nothing else, he's a huge bull.
If nothing else, he can be a translator with any other of the creatures like him that show up. So maybe he'll be able to, help them find their way. So,
yeah.
All right. But, thanks for joining us, everybody. We appreciate you hanging out in the stream and adding your comments to the chat. We will catch you next time. If you are catching this after the live show and you're watching the recording, please make sure you like, subscribe, do all those things. And in the description box, if you want to support the show, you can always buy us coffee while we're in the cafe. Completely optional, obviously, but if you feel the need to show support, there's a way to do it. But otherwise, just keep on watching, and we will keep on having the shows. So thanks, everybody, and have a great night.
Thanks, guys.